Welcome to the sixth episode of this biology question and answer series. In fact, we are going to be answering some questions, providing you with some answers which are related to the questions we are going to be asking. So we want to make sure that you stay focused and really understand what are from the inside to better prepare you when it concerns any exams and of course learning as a whole. So we are going to begin with the first question, giving the responses in accordance to the questions. But first, you're going to select which of the correct answer among the list you think is most correct. After which, we are going to choose the correct one and give you the response based on the backings of the answers. And also, I would like you that you comment below this video to tell us exactly how many out of the list of this top 10 we have to share with you, how many correct that you have. If you have, for example, 2, say 2 of 10. If you have 6, say 6 of 10. And if you have 9 or 10, say 9 of 10 or 10 of 10 in the comment section of this video. So without wasting time, let's look at the first question here. Looking at the first question, which organ is primarily responsible for detoxification in humans? Which organ is primarily responsible for detoxification in humans? A, we have kidney. B, we have liver. C, we have the lungs. And D, we have the pancreas. Which among this list you think is most correct? You can have about 1 to 2 seconds to pick your answer. I believe you have seen your own. And now I'll give the correct answer here. So in this list, the correct answer is B, which is the liver. B is the correct answer. And I would like you to listen to this small note which I've arranged for you to better understand why C is very correct. Let me read it out for you so that you easily understand. The liver function is to detoxify harmful substances and of course metabolize drugs and process toxins by making sure that it converts them into less harmful substances which can then be excreted out of the body. So that is the most relevant function of the liver. The function is to make sure that any harmful substances that they are found, make sure that it converts them to a less harmful substance which can then be excreted out of the body. That's the function of the liver. That is why the liver plays this role of detoxification, which means that it reduces the harmfulness of a given substance to make it less toxic, after which it is sent out of the body through excretion. Now, let's look at the next question. The next question, which is question 52, states, which part of the nephron is responsible for ultrafiltration? Which part of the nephron? A, we have the loop of Henle. B, proximal convoluted tubule. C, glomerulus. D, collecting duct. Which you think is correct among this list? We have 2 seconds. I believe you have seen your answer, but of course in this list, whatever your answer is, the correct one here or choice here is option C, which is the glomerulus. In fact, I want you to listen very keenly to this explanation which I've prepared for you. The glomerulus filters blood under high pressure, allowing small molecules to pass into the Bowman's capsule while retaining protein and cell. You can see that the function of the glomerulus itself is to make sure that under high pressure, it tends to make sure that it allows the passage of small molecules into the Bowman capsule while retaining protein and cells. So if you are asked which part of the nephron is responsible for ultrafiltration, you're going to say the glomerulus, because that is the role of the glomerulus for ultrafiltration. Let's look at the next question, question 53, which states that which hormone increases heart rate and pressure and prepare the body for stress? Increase heart rate and prepare the body for stress. Which hormone is responsible for that? A, insulin. B, adrenaline. C, melatonin. And C, D, prolactin. Which is correct? I believe you have already had 2 seconds. In fact, whatever the case your answer is, the correct option here is option B, which is adrenaline. I want you to listen to this note I've prepared for you. Adrenaline itself triggers the flight, and that is the fight and flight mode. You can say fight or flight mode. All right, and this is responsible. In the response of this, make sure that it increases the heartbeat rate. The fight and flight mode prepares the body for stress. So what triggers the fight and flight mode is the adrenaline, which triggers it. And when it triggers it, it prepares the body to prepare itself for any stress factor. That is why the correct option is adrenaline, because it is the one that is responsible for triggering the body, that is trigger the body and make sure that it prepares it for any stress that is present. Okay, now, and when this happens, the triggering of the flight or the fight or flight mode causes increase in the heartbeat rate. And of course, the blood pressure also increases. So you can see that what is related here is the fact that the heart rate in the question itself, which hormone increases heart rate. So they are talking about heart rate to prepare the body for stress. There are two things here. Heart rate being increased, and secondly, stress. So the only thing that plays this role is adrenaline, which when it triggers the body, for the body to prepare for the stress ahead of it, it will cause the heartbeat rate to increase. And therefore, when the heartbeat rate increases, what happens is it prepares the body now for stress. And in this process, the blood pressure also increases in a small amount. Therefore, we are seeing that heart rate increases, blood pressure increases, prepare the body for stress. So adrenaline is the one that played that role. Now, let's move to the next question. Question 54, which states, which blood component is responsible for clotting? A, red blood cells. B, plasma. C, platelets. D, white blood cell. Which is correct? In fact, the option here is C, which is platelet. Listen to this very carefully. Platelet itself aggregates at injury site. And once this happens, it tends to release the clotting factor. And therefore, once the clotting factor has been released, it tends to form a clot to prevent further loss of blood. That is why it is C, which is the platelet, because it is the one responsible for the clotting factor. Once platelet aggregate at injury site, what happens is it releases the clotting factor, causing blood clot, and therefore preventing the loss of blood further. So the correct option here is platelet that played that role in terms of responsible for the clotting of blood. And blood only clots due to the fact that there is the presence of vitamin K, because vitamin K itself is the component which is responsible for blood clotting. Therefore, if you have more of vitamin K, the clotting will be very, very fast. There are some people that lack vitamin K, that is, they don't have sufficient amount of vitamin K in their body. As a result, whenever they have an injury, what happens is they bleed too much. But of course, to those that have more of vitamin K, that is why it is good to consume mostly vegetables that are rich in vitamin K. It also helps in the clotting factor, so that in case of injuries or in case of any kind of injury, it helps for easy clotting of blood and prevent further loss of blood. That is why it is also good to take nutrients or food substance or vegetables rich in vitamin K. Let's move to the next, question 55. Question 55 states, which type of immunity is obtained through vaccination? A, we have natural passive immunity. B, artificial active immunity. C, natural active immunity. And D, artificial passive immunity. In fact, when we talked about immunity, it obtained through vaccination. Just the fact that it is vaccinate, that is, it is not natural, then the option artificial is going to come in the answer. So artificial is one of them. But we have two artificial here. We have artificial active immunity. We have artificial passive immunity. So which is correct now? Is it the active or is it the passive? So the correct one will be B, which is artificial active immunity. Let me explain to you why. Vaccines itself, when you take vaccine or you are being given vaccine, what happens is it stimulates the immune system to produce antibodies. When these antibodies are produced, what happens is it helps not to cause any disease. So this is artificial. By forcing the body to produce antibody, it is artificial by forcing it. But it is active because this antibody is active. So it is artificial active immunity. So the immunity which have been provided is active, but it is obtained through artificial means by injecting vaccine in the body of the cell, that is in the living system. So it is artificial active immunity, which is correct. Let's move to the next question. Question 56. Which cell type produces antibodies? We have A, T lymphocyte. We have B, macrophages. C, plasma cells. And we have D, neutrophils, which is correct. In fact, the correct option here is the plasma cell. And I'll give you the reason why. when we talk about plasma cell, it is being derived from the B lymphocyte. And this lymphocyte function is to secrete antibodies specific for particular antigens. Look at the sense here. The B lymphocyte, which is, we are talking about the plasma cells, because the plasma cells that is the plasma cell, the B lymphocyte derived from the plasma cell. And because it is derived from the plasma cell, the function of this B lymphocyte is to make sure that it secretes antibodies which is specific for particular antigens. Therefore, if you are being asked which cell type produces antibodies, know that it is plasma cell, because the plasma cell will produces B lymphocyte, which in return secretes antibodies responsible now for protection against specific antigens. So plasma cell is correct. Let's move to the next question. Question 57. Which structure transmits nerve impulses away from cell body? A. Dendrite. B. Axon. C. Synapse. D. The myelin sheath. The correct option on this list is the axon, which is B. Let me explain to you. The axon itself conducts electrical impulses from the neuron. That is from the neuron cell body, not the neuron cell body to other neurons or effectors. Look at the rule of the axon itself. What happened is it is responsible for the conduction of electrical impulses from neurons cell body to other neurons or effectors. So if you look at the question that states that which structure transmit nerve, we are talking about the transmission of nerve impulses away from the cell body, away from the cell body. So it is the axon. It conducts or transmit nerve impulses away from the cell body. So axon is correct. Let's look at the next question. Question 58. Which neurotransmitter is commonly associated with muscle contraction? Which neurotransmitter causes muscle contraction? That is what we are trying to say here. A. Dopamine. B. Serotonin. C. Acetylcholine. And D. GABA. Correct option after 2 seconds, which is correct. C. Acetylcholine. Let's look at the reason. Acetylcholine is released at neuromuscular junction. Listen to it again. Acetylcholine is being released at neuromuscular junction. And once this is released, what happens? It triggers muscle fiber contraction. In this question, they are talking about muscle contraction. So if acetylcholine is the one that is released at neuromuscular junction, which in return causes fiber of muscle to contract, then the correct answer here is acetylcholine. I believe you can easily see the logic here. So the option is C, which is correct, acetylcholine. Let's move to the next question. Question 59. Which lung structure allows gas exchange? Which structure of the lungs is responsible for the exchange of gas? A, we have bronchi. B, we have the trachea or the trachea. C, the alveoli. And D, pleura. Which is correct here after 2 seconds? The correct option here, first second, second. The correct option is C, which is the alveoli. Let's look at it. The alveoli itself have thin walls and large surface area, enabling efficient oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. Remember, the question is talking about allowing gas exchange. When we talk about a gas exchange, we are talking about exchange of gas, which is carbon dioxide and oxygen. Gas exchange must include carbon dioxide and oxygen in terms of the lungs when we are talking about the lungs, because we must take in oxygen, sending out carbon dioxide. That gaseous exchange, what is responsible for the gaseous exchange? It is at the level of the alveoli, which of course have a large surface area because of the fact that they have a thin wall and the surface area is large. What happened therefore? It helps efficient exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide at this level. So alveoli is very correct. Let's move to the next question, which is question 60. Now at this juncture, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel to follow up with the best upcoming release of the next episode, you want to make sure that you go ahead to now subscribe and enable the notification bell icon, because we are going to be subsequently releasing top videos like this based on top questions to prepare you and to make sure that you stand ahead of others, to see some of the top questions that you might find or top available questions when it concerns this level. We have different episodes that we keep releasing on different science subjects: biology, physiology, histology, pharmacology, anatomy, and many more. In fact, if you are science type, this is just for you. Go ahead, subscribe, enable the notification bell icon, so that anytime we release videos like this on different subject types, you're going to benefit directly from it. Now, that being said, let's move ahead to the next question, which is the last on this list, 10 of it, is which mechanism explains oxygen binding to hemoglobin? Which mechanism explains oxygen binding to hemoglobin? A, we have diffusion only. B, cooperative binding. C, active transport. D, osmosis. Which option is correct? In fact, using logic, we can easily pick the correct answer by logic. You have heard in the question they are talking about oxygen binding to hemoglobin, so binding in the effect. So if you look at cooperative binding, they are telling you indirectly that the answer is B, cooperative binding, because binding is in the answer itself and the question itself. So the correct option is B, which is cooperative binding. And because this is the reason why, hemoglobin shows cooperative binding. So you can see, I want you to look at that text. Hemoglobin shows cooperative binding, where binding of one oxygen molecule tends to increase affinity of the other. So I want you to look at the term hemoglobin shows cooperative binding. So the correct option is cooperative binding from that text itself. So these are some of the top questions we have to share with you. We are preparing the next upcoming episode to be released very soon. So make sure to subscribe, like, and share so that it's going to reach more people to benefit from what we have to share to you all. See you in the next upload, and bye-bye for now.